All right, thanks, Colonel.
Mhm.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Portsmouth Coffee Talks Evening Edition show. And I'm James Slim Overton, and I'm here with co-host Leah Drake Stitt and Thomas the Colonel Chapman. Good evening,
Good
co-host.
evening. Good evening, everyone.
Good
I,
evening.
I hope you I hope you're somewhere cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
yes, we are.
And I hope today is not an indication what we can look for during the summer, during those June, July, and August days, because we're
well,
not
look
going to
forward
make
to it.
it.
Look forward to it because it's coming.
Yeah.
Yes. I want it hot this summer.
Oh yeah. You and Dominion Energy want
Yeah.
it hot. So, but anyway, welcome everybody, and on in Facebook, and we're here, and we have a special guest, Tony Goodwin, and he is a businessman in the city of Portsmouth. Involved with the Old Town Civic League, the Old Town Business League, and many other boards and commissions. I'll let you tell them a little bit about that. And Tony, how you doing today?
Very well, Slim. It's nice to see you all here and enjoying this wonderful weather. And hopefully it'll stick this time and not be cold again.
Yeah, and yeah, how about that? Because like I said a few weeks ago, I already put my winter stuff away, and then the next day, I had to dig in there and pull out a jacket. But
Mhm.
anyway, welcome. Thanks for wanting to come on Portsmouth Coffee Talks evening show and share some information with us,
Thank
particularly
you.
about downtown. So, Tony, well, let the people know a little bit about what you're involved with downtown and throughout the city, but basically downtown, and then give us an update of what's going on,
Sure.
what what's going on in the future.
Well, a little bit to my background is that, being born in Portsmouth and living all over Hampton Roads, my mom and dad, uh, it's a really interesting story. We're actually some of those rare natives that we always talk about that are kind of blended in with a lot of people that move in from all over the world, mainly because of our military.
Mhm.
But we're proud to say we're here, probably 5 to 6 generations deep in Hampton Roads, but more importantly, Portsmouth. And then but having the opportunity to live in both Western Branch and Chesapeake, and then Virginia Beach at the ocean front for a few years while I went to high school, and then I just decided it was time to come back home and live right here in downtown in Parkview, where of course I was a baby of Portsmouth General Hospital, so right down the street. You can't get any
Right
closer
down
to
the
home,
street.
that's for sure. so but anyhow, my folks were, dad was military and did his tour and then became got took his 10-year degree program to get his engineering degree, and of course he's been in the area for forever, but he ended up getting into real estate back when I was probably, well, let's put it to you this way, before I was born. And then there's probably pictures of me sitting in the middle of a rental property somewhere out in Virginia Beach with a paintbrush in my hand. But the rest is history. Up until I get later in life and become a professional licensed real estate agent, and choose to go in the commercial realm, which sometimes can be a good
Let
thing
me
or a
knock
bad thing.
somebody out.
So,
Great.
are we still there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Well, anyhow, I just say that I jumped into commercial real estate. Dad having a lot of investment property throughout, and that's how I ended up getting my start in the business. And ever since then, I told myself that I'll be in Portsmouth as my sandbox, and then spread out from all over the area just to be there to beat the drum for Portsmouth and say, hey, come here and see how we are. And so here we are today with 13 years as a licensed real estate professional, and still just as involved as I was from the day I started. In fact, it's ironic that we've done different projects to help mixed use development here in downtown, some larger projects out in the western part of the city. I can honestly say that also what comes with this business is that I was a licensed auctioneer and still am in the auction business. So I've had the opportunity not only to sell and lease and develop property, but I've also been able to auction property and liquidate property. And one of my biggest projects that I was assigned to was when we liquidated Tower Mall before it was torn down. So growing up in that mall and then helping liquidate it was very surreal. So that's been some of the fun things I've done through the area and in Portsmouth specifically, but looking forward to doing a whole lot more. I'm not slowing down.
Let me ask you this before you get started on the updates. Now, you're showing a little gray there, but you're a really young man, and I wanted to ask you: do you remember when downtown was really thriving, famous, and all the different stores we had down there, and it was really thriving? And we had Tower Mall at the same time that was also doing well, and Mid City. Do you remember those days? I know you might have been a little young, or maybe you weren't even here yet, but
Well,
I know you know the history of it.
I'll be very, very honest. Tomorrow is the big day for
Uh-oh.
me at 5:00.
Oh,
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
so you're a policeman now.
No, I would. Well, yeah, we could use that terminology. But I say start counting down, going backward. Better things. Everything's better when you count down, like rocket launches and New Year's Eve balls. So I'm going to stay. I'm not going to do the 50-year mark. I'm just going to start counting backwards. But with that said, yes, the gray has come in a little bit, and you might the 15-year-old might have something to do with it. But for the most part, I wear it with as much distinction as possible.
Yes,
It's
please
this
do.
going away is what's making me more concerned. But no, a lot of people say that you're too young to know what used to be down here in downtown or all over the city. And I said, you're absolutely right. But at the same time, too, I pay attention to my history because Portsmouth has so much history. And that's one of our best selling features. When I always talked about when we were trying to, get across to our neighboring cities and the rest of Hampton Roads, it was always talk about, we need to, control our narrative and talk about ourselves in the good things that we do and have to offer, not only to our own citizens within the city, but also for everyone else to come in and visit. So like I said, it was important for me to learn the history so I could actually sell the future to potential businesses, as more importantly, families and people to build this community up and be able to be competitive inside the region of Hampton Roads.
Yeah, I asked that because I know right now you have a big hand in the renaissance that's slowly taking place in the downtown area and filling some of those vacant buildings. Some of them you own and some of them you have acted as an agent. So, and that's one of the reasons you want to come on to sort of talk about that renaissance. And I'll use that term because Dr. Holly used to like to use that a lot. Renaissance.
Very much so. Truly an idol for me to be able to listen to him and listen to his guidance. And we did a lot together as well because he knew I was out there wearing holes in my shoes to get the deals done or get the process moving forward and always trying to get into the end zone. The going back to the whole idea of the Renaissance, it all started with a plan called Vision 2005. Back in the early 90s, Ray Gendros, all of that came together and we were on those committees and as a community. And that was when we were really encouraged to be the stakeholders and having a seat at the table. So things that came out of Vision 2005 and then 2025, which obviously is right around the corner here, we kind of got steered away from it a little bit for just basic distractions. But Vision 2005 did give us the Renaissance Hotel, Harbor Center Pavilion, the relocation of the courthouses. Haven't finished that project yet, but we're there. Things like Victory Crossing and Victory Village, or what was supposed to be Victory Village TCC back in Portsmouth. All those were coming out of that Vision 2005 plan. And I'm happy to say with people like yourselves and others, we all had a seat at the table when it talked about doing things like that. So, and there's other things that are happening right now too that are similar that we all should be a part of.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to get back to that citizen involvement and bringing the real stakeholder holders, which are the citizens who pay the taxes
Sure.
in a lot of these groups. And Leah just experienced something in dealing with another issue that we have in the city as far as crime and poverty. So,
Oh my
and
God.
I think that was very successful. And I think when we went away from that, that's when the ball kind of slowed down almost to a stop.
You're absolutely right. We've been, I watch the pattern, not only for Portsmouth, but I watch the patterns, and this is just what I do, and watch the patterns of how things progress in neighboring cities, as well as other regions, and how we compete. And, I'm a firm believer is, why reinvent the wheel, but more importantly, why we should be ahead of the curves and be ready for the next wave, because things go in cycles. Everything pretty much goes on 10-year cycles. Unfortunately, Portsmouth falls in like 5 years too late to that 10-year cycle sometimes, and sometimes we miss the whole cycle altogether because we get stuck in the mud in some places because we didn't have that we didn't go into it with a firm direction and true leadership that was basically pushing right into the next wave.
Mhm.
And so we're in the process of we're in the middle of a reset, as we all are hearing right now, even now, and we need to be ready for the next wave. And I have to say, hats off to some of the younger folks that are down at planning in the city, where they're young, they're fresh, they've got new ideas, they feel engaged, and I think there's more coming out now, and we're getting back to where we had the Vision 2005 committee meetings, the other forums and charrettes that we all were a part of,
Mhm.
and seeing the value. Because today we're talking about the innovation district, and I don't know if y'all have been plugged in
Yes.
or in tune.
Yes.
That's a result of taking what downtown or D2 of what the form-based code was. Like it or hate it, I actually kind of enjoyed it because it was actually giving us a good footprint to work by, but there was no motivation or movement making progress. So we revised that and come into this innovation district. And I think with IC Norcom being in the middle of it, the social services and the new health center being the medical part of it, I've always said for years, we need a strong medical component downtown. Not only for the citizens to be able to have access to services, but more so the jobs in that profession, in that field, are people that come in, work, and then they go to the restaurant that's around the corner, and then they go to the shop that's around the corner, and they see the convenience of being able to just simply walk out their front door and do everything they need before either they leave and go home, or possibly, hopefully, they might choose to stay and live down here too.
And so, Tony, as we are envisioning these changes that are taking place in Portsmouth, I see some of the work that's going on High Street.
Sure.
One of the things that people constantly complain about is the fact that we have no place really to go to buy shoes, clothing, stockings, and those items in the city. We have to go to Chesapeake or Norfolk or Newport News. Are there any plans at this time to bring some type of store here where you can purchase items of that nature?
Well, Leah, that actually was a saying that happened in 1993 as well.
I know, I do know. And here it is 2023.
Exactly. Well, I can say with some honesty that again, it's all in patterns. Online shopping has changed the world dramatically.
It has.
It took Nordstrom out. So what can you say?
Yeah, exactly. You're seeing malls that went and opened up in suburbia to get away from your core downtown mixed use type town centers back in the 60s and 70s, and now they're going away because the brick and mortar in that fashion is chewing up and spitting out these big companies and big investment groups that own these big malls, and they're leveling them after 40 to 50 years. So that's the pattern we need to be a part of. Now, when I talk to a young couple, when I tell you one couple that I spoke to and I brought them in called Shoe Escape, they were in the 300 block of High Street, right across the street from Roger Brown's. Donise and James Anderson were both newlyweds, and she wanted to start this business. She grew it out of this one shop. And I told them, as I tell everybody, if you're coming into a business down here, consider this real estate or this store as almost like your high-end warehouse, but make sure you're pushing more business out the back door to cover your overhead, because things are going to, be, and so they listened to me. And in fact, that's what they grew and ended up opening up another location or second location over at Williams Court, and now and moved to Atlanta. Well, they're back and they're doing some other things back in Williams Court again, because they worked as such a wonderful relationship. But on the other piece, when it comes to the niche boutiques and mom and pop shops, I think you're going to see in the next 20 years probably a resurgence of the mom and pop shops, because we're losing the big boxes to the online retailing. But more importantly, though, the mom and pop shops still need to be competitive in the online presence. And that's just the best business model you can do right now. But like I said, I really feel like in the next 20 years, because there's enough people still out there that want to feel it, touch it, and want to be able to take and pay for it and take it home right then, not wait for it to be delivered to their front door.
Exactly.
So it's coming. It's just got to come in a way that makes sense. And I fight, I'll say this, I didn't make many friends at one point in time where the corner of High and Effingham, which was the old Bloomberg's department store building. That's the original building. That's how I always refer to real estate, is what was its original use. And then it was the Allen Furniture Store, and then it was High Street Galleries. By the way, that was what I opened in 2000 with a couple that I was consulting. And then it sat vacant for a little while, and now it's finally reopened as Bloom Co-working right on the corner of High and Effingham. So the point to the story is that it's gone through its cycles, but there was a time when it actually went under foreclosure. And the company that foreclosed on it had a mindset to say, we're going to blank out all these windows, frost them over, and put nothing but residents along the first floor, along High Street and Effingham. And I said, no. This is the continuity that we need to maintain along High Street at least. But first, secondly, you've got to worry about what kind of quality of life is that going to be for somebody to have a window right on High Street. So they backtracked that, and of course we have what we have today: 2 locations of Bloom Co-working in that collection of buildings, and then Cure Coffee Shop, which is in the old Montgomery Square. Prior to that, Comfort is the restaurant that was prior to that, and now just this past week, a small brewery of a local couple that just they're from Port Norfolk that just opened up just this past week. And so there's space that Rivers Casino was in temporarily is vacant, and I don't know if they're going to be backfilling it with something of their own, or they're going to simply put it up for lease. And then some extra vacant space along Effingham on the backside, ironically, where the old escalators used to be, which I do remember the escalators.
And Tony, that Bloom Co-working is really wonderful. I just had an instance when someone called me from out of town and they were looking for a place to hold a meeting. I went there and met with the people there, and it's just an amazing site for someone who's coming in town. You don't have a place to meet. It's a great place to go and meet your clients.
Very much so. And, and that's a trend that we may be a little bit behind the curve when it comes to Bloom Co-working, but we do have to say that there was a big event called a pandemic that fell in the middle of what is now kind of almost shaping up to be the new way of office space, shared office space, where one company doesn't lease 5,000 square feet of space, but only leases 1,500 square feet of space for administration, but then has remote workers in places like co-working spaces all over the area. And so with that said, there's 2. physically set up now and operating, and that's InQ Hub, which was first over off of 7th Street, right there at the mouth of the downtown tunnel. And they've been open, gosh, probably close to almost 5 years. And then now Bloom, and they have the two locations. And I'm actually in our building that is here at the corner of corner of Chestnut and High Street, which is 900 and 906 High Street, which we are actually in the process of building this out as a co-working space, but driven towards more of a tech hub. And when I say a tech hub, what you have behind you, Leah, is a green screen. Obviously, people know that. You know what it is. Well, we're going to actually have office space that will have green screens for podcasts and creators. We're going to have we have a model home in this building because it used to be the headquarters of Ambassador Enterprises. That they built a model home in 2003 to show how you could automate your house. Well, it's still sitting here, so we're actually going to use that as a location to do commercials and film and for the tenants or the occupants of the building. And then to boot, we also have warehouse space or space downstairs that was their stock room that will give us an opportunity to work with e-commerce businesses that are solely working online and selling their wares. They can actually have a warehouse here and an office right upstairs.
Wonderful.
And so this is the new office business model that I see, because you're not in long-term leases. It fosters mom and pops or startups, and it takes them right into the next phase. So my hope is I'm not going to lock somebody in here for a 3-year lease or a 2-year lease. And I'm not even on a 1-year lease in some cases, where people are basically coming in here to build their business model and then take it out and get into a more permanent, I guess you could say, office space or even storefront.
Yes.
So that's what's coming up.
That's the new wave of the world. So
That
hey,
is the new wave. That is definitely the
wonderful.
new wave. And in our facility, just to give you an idea, it's going to be called Imanovation Studios. It's imagination, innovation put together. And then studios will simply say that this is what we do and offer up space for people to be creative in. And beautiful thing about it is it's the beginning or the first block of the innovation district as well.
Wonderful.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Tony, let me jump in here right quick and give this disclaimer here and tell the people out there in Electron Land that the views stated on this program are the host and the guest, and no third party endorsement or anywhere else. So we can stay out of Facebook jail or whatever.
Got it. Well, I'm sorry we didn't do that before. Hopefully we're still on Facebook right now, right?
We're still on.
Good.
So so Tony, what other plans are there for High Street?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I was the agent for the seller of a portfolio of properties everyone knows and has driven by probably for many years, and probably went to your doctor's office, your dentist office, or whatever. And that is the Professional Building on the corner of Washington and High Street.
Yes.
We put that property under, I'd been working on that property for about 5 years with the owners, and to figure out what the solution was to reoccupy that 7-story building after behavioral health moved out many years ago and moved up to their new facility up on County in York. So we looked at all the options. He did a couple of scenarios, and it just didn't make, it did a couple of things, and that is realize that it's going to cost a lot of money to do a lot of renovations to this building. But what's beautiful about it is it's an Art Deco built in 1929. And is fully qualified for the wonderful program called historic tax credits. So that means that basically anyone that goes in and renovates that building, they get 40% of that back in tax credits, and then they can either sell them or use them themselves. But that's what makes deals work like this. You're talking about a 7-story building, 40,000, 45,000 square feet. But with that, the old YMCA building, the 2-story building beside that, the location where Yolks on Us is located in Elizabeth Building and Loan, is all been grouped together, and one new owner has bought it as of today. It
Oh,
actually
wow.
closed today. And I'm happy to say that he's coming in and doing a full restoration, not just a renovation, but a restoration of the professional building and turning it into 46 apartments, recreating new storefronts on the first floor as they used to look back in the day when I think the pharmacy was there and there was a couple of other businesses there, and basically putting a resurgence back on that corner to connect the dots between obviously what's going on down at the Commodore and then the 600 block that they did so much work on back in the mid 90s. So that is, you'll start seeing containers and a lot of construction going on in the next month or so, and that will be a jewel for us to be proud of in downtown, as we are proud of everything that's been going on down here. The back when I was running in the campaign, like in 2020, I was in the process of establishing a new business in the old China Garden restaurant across from the Children's Museum. Bangkok Garden is there today.
Yes.
They wanted to buy a location. They wanted to be able to have a few tenants, which for the first time in 30 years, that building is fully occupied. And that was just a perfect scenario where now we've got a strong corner there with a name that everyone knows, and that's, behind it is of course that art store, and then behind that is the a small photography studio, and then beside that is the Old Town Art and Music, and he does all kinds of lessons for piano and guitar and a whole lot of other things. Crystal, his girlfriend there. So I think it's been a big plus.
Tony, you mentioned the pandemic, and I think that in modern times, is in today's time, any business, mom and pops, you've got to be connected to the internet and e-commerce, because even though you may have something in your store, if you got a big e-commerce footprint, you cut down on inventory, which cuts down on your cost, and then you still make money out the back door. I think that's what you were referring to.
Most definitely. And that works hand in hand with the restaurant business now too. So many people are now accustomed to having food delivered through either Uber Eats or DoorDash.
Yes.
And they're paying a service fee to get that convenience. Now, granted, it's not bringing them out on the street, but at least it gives them connections to the businesses, and more of the mom and pops have a chance to survive when, they might have a bad weeknight but that was what's so funny about Bangkok Garden. When that happened, the Churchland location out in Churchland Shopping Center, which is owned by the Adlam family as well, that store went from probably a mediocre store to their number one store literally overnight because of deliveries, online ordering, and everything. And they've got stores in Virginia Beach, at Hilltop, and then this one picked up. So it's just funny how the whole pattern and trends kind of change the dynamics of some of the business habits, people actually, and what they do, and get accustomed to in their environment. So
go ahead, Colonel. Finish, Colonel.
Well, you mentioned a subset because you're in commercial real estate, and I've always wondered. I look at the papers and I see. Can you explain to these when you talk about auctions, these tax auctions and foreclosures that I see in the paper? Are they for real that the common citizen could come down and can bid, or is the big folks swiping up everything?
Well, again, same thing. Patterns kind of go with the way the market's going, and the tax sales. I've been involved in a few. I've been able to save a few before they had to go to tax sale, because let's face it, they're going because they're a tax lien on the property. And it used to be that it was live and in person. Foreclosures, of course, being different, but on the front steps of the courthouse or the live sale was at the Bayouie Pavilion for us when Mr. Williams was treasurer. And now it's really gone all online. And so it's online bidding. But, when you get groups or large buyers, they're coming in there and buying them to fix them up and put them back on the market. And instead of it being a substandard property, which might have fallen in disrepair for just unfortunate circumstances, someone's lost their job, lost a family member, lost things. Basically, it turned around, and they were these buyers that are using them and flipping them are simply coming in and putting a better product. Hopefully, sometimes it doesn't, but for the most part, they come out with a better product, which lifts the neighborhood's value up by taking what might have been a dilapidated property, or in some cases, too, vacant property. A lot of times, the tax sales are just vacant land.
Mm-hmm.
But those even are tricky if you're not savvy enough when you're buying vacant land. A lot of the restrictions, such as the size of the lot, sometimes there's a lot of properties that the city literally will have a tax sale on that will not be buildable. You
That's
just
right.
can't
Can't do anything with it.
Can't do anything with it. And
That's
trust
right.
me, my dad's been there and bought a few of those, knowing that they weren't buildable, but he just bought them anyhow. And I'm thinking, okay, whatever. It's more grass to cut. But at the end of the day, they are for real, and a normal citizen can come out there and get a good deal. But you have to be a savvy buyer to buy properties, either residential or commercial, when you go up that way, because auctions typically cut through a lot of red tape. And more importantly, they cut through a lot of time of due diligence for anyone to be able to purchase a piece of property. As they always say, buyer beware. Well, when you go to the auction, it's an as is, where is, no guarantees written, implied, or expressed otherwise. Is that
better have done your homework?
That's our term.
Right.
and so, and then too, another thing about auctions, if it's not a tax sale and if it's a regular auction, it's going before, to kind of just cut some ties. A lot of times it cuts a lot through. When I say red tape, say for instance, someone has a lien on the property for work to be done or something. And if they're not there to protect their interests, that goes away, because the first lien holder, most importantly, is always the bank, is going to be the one that's going to take it to the auction.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that maybe did $20,000 worth of work on it and had a lien against the property, if he doesn't come in there and buy it, then he's out his $20,000, because the auction cuts it off. It just basically wipes out a lot of that. Now, there are some I have to do this disclosure as well. There are some circumstances that can't be wiped off through that process. But for the most part, I'd say 75% will basically, 75 to 80% will get wiped out when the first lien holder takes it to auction.
Yeah, and those bank foreclosures on single family homes are a whole different animal.
Oh, yes.
When you go in there, you mentioned about cutting out, the auction cuts out a lot of that stuff, but if you don't know what you're doing, you get yourself in a whole lot of unforeseen troubles that you weren't expecting. You think you're getting a good deal, and everything on that back end could come back to haunt you if you don't know what you're getting. Tony, I want to ask you,
you buy it right. You just buy it right and make sure that you have enough, equity to fix it up. You always go into, especially in this area, a wooden home is, you always go into it and say, hey, it's half eaten up by termites because we're just in this area. Mm-hmm. And you go into it thinking, well, I'm going to replace half the lumber in it, which, I've been there and done that too.
But you mentioned about tax credits in downtown. There are some other incentives for downtown for people doing business or buying buildings. Do they still have that facade, where you could get credit for replacing your facade of the building, which, and how much does that increase the value? I know it's for aesthetics mostly, because you want the downtown to look decent, and you don't want your building to look like this, and the building right next to you has, and that's the reason they offered that, so owners of buildings can pick theirs up, so it be continuous down the road. So how much value does that add, and does that and you said that program still exists?
Yes, Yes. Well, and that's another part of being, you know, I do a lot of research, a lot of homework on what I'm offering and through my listings with my clients as the sellers, but more importantly with the buyers as well, is to look for what's there to incentivize them to, that's typically based upon the address. So historic tax credits can go in either. It's easier, obviously, when it's inside of an historic district. We have one commercial historic district, which is High Street, and then we have 5 residential historic districts: Old Town, Craddock, Truxton, Parkview, and Port Norfolk. And so there could be some more coming, because obviously every community is getting older every day. So I think there's a cause to champion possibly looking into some other communities, but those create some incentives to do better for those communities in the right way, and it just has to be done with a little bit of, you know, intricate details. But those historic tax credits typically fall easier in the historic districts. You can go for historic tax credits that are not in historic districts, just a little bit more challenging and a little bit more money to do that. The cities, you know, there's multiple layers of incentives scattered all over Portsmouth, not just in downtown, but we have enterprise zone number 1, enterprise zone number 2, and those are mostly state incentives where you get rehabilitative rehabilitative funds to do work in a building and bring it back, and they will actually say thank you very much and stroke you the check in the next calendar year after you get a CO by the 31st of December. That program, I believe, is still fully funded, and you know, sometimes it changes, and it might have a little bit less one year than they do the other year. But then when it comes to the local and economic development authority, has the incentive zones, that's the key word, is incentive. It's been morphed into not just being facade, but interior work as well. And they also had the security grant, which has also been lumped into it. But it's basically a matching grant. You spend $50,000 up front. You, of course, get qualified and approved to do your project, but then you spend $50,000, and in return, they will give you 50 cents on the dollar. So you get $25,000 back. Once you've completed the job, you've gone through all the, you know, the list of things that you've done, the receipts and the pictures and everything else, and then they sign off and say, thank you very much. I've done that 3 times and assisted 2 others to do that program. And it's proven to be a great program. You know, Little Shops on High, there's where, Leah, there's where you're a place you can get some clothes. Little Shops right there in the
on High Street.
Yes, ma'am.
You got a Mademoiselle.
Yep. Little Shops on High, we did that one first. We did the Bangkok Garden as well. And then and one of my little pride and joys is the Pelican Snowballs, which is on Chestnut Street. And you know, that's another, that one I personally took that one on in 2021 and worked on it first quarter and second quarter of 2022. And that I have to say has been somewhat of a fight, because it's the former Safeway cab station.
Yeah, Kelly's
I thought that was designated historic.
Yeah, it's Kelly's.
Well,
wasn't it Kelly's cab place, James?
No, it wasn't Kelly's. It was
Safeway. Okay.
Yep. So I went back and did some research and to find out what the background of that was, and the Watts brothers, which of course were the ones that started Safeway, as far as I could tell. And a lot of other businesses that they had done. But when I went down, I bought the building from Safeway Cab, the group that basically had pretty much disbanded. And I turned around and I said, I'm going to find a purpose for this little 350 square foot building. And so I applied to go to Downtown Design Commission and come up with a game plan in January of 2022. And they called me 3 hours before the meeting and said, Tony, I'm sorry, but we won't be able to make any judgment calls on your application. I said, well, this is really just a conversation tonight. I was going in to kind of get their feel of what they wanted me to do. So I wouldn't be, let's face it, wasting time and money on a architect and then getting rejected for that. So anyhow, long story short, 3 hours before the meeting, they said, well, you can't do this. It's a non-conforming structure under the present zoning ordinance. And I said, okay. So I went to the meeting anyhow. And I was going to actually try to redo, because the building was, the roof was in terrible shape because it had been set on fire 3 times by the antenna that stuck up behind it when it got struck by lightning. And then the block walls were like wiggling. And so I said, I still want to save this building. And I went in with a plan to turn it to look like a Tasty Freeze, with the big butterfly roof that slants and comes off the front and covers over the. So that was, they said, you can't do that because it's making an addition onto a non-conforming structure. You'd have to tear the structure down and rebuild it up against the sidewalk and go 2 stories high and 75 feet wide. And I said, not going to happen. So I asked him, I said, as long as I don't go beyond the walls, can I go up and repair the roof? They said, sure. I went up 11 feet on top of those concrete block walls and made it look like an old Pure gas station. Because it was a gas station before it was Safeway, I think, or at least it had a gas island. And then I got the call from Pelican Snowballs from the corporate office in Charlotte. They said, we love your idea and your concept. We'd like to rent the space. And I said, okay, let's make a deal on this. And so here we are today. The building has been saved. And I just wasn't going to take it down. And I think it gave justice to, a dying industry that unfortunately is been replaced by Uber and Lyft.
Yes.
But it gives back to the community because it's a place for kids to, I've had more people now that the weather has finally warmed up. When are you open? When are you open? Well, they were supposed to open. They shoot for the 15th of April. So we're still trying to get them up and running because they were open for about 2 months last year at the tail end of the summer. And so, but we'll have them going here in a little bit. And I'm happy to say I think unless, I have heard nothing but good comments about how it turned out. And I'd like to still get a mural on the wall of the building, of the office building here with the Watts brothers, and actually have a mural on the wall kind of showing the different businesses that they were involved in. I was amazed in the different things that they did.
Right.
As both doctors and I think one was a doctor, one was a lawyer, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
And that they were just so involved in different business models that just, to me, I thought, why not put a mural on the side of the building right across Wall Street, which is the alleyway that overlooks the front of where the Safeway cab used to be.
Yeah. And before I'm gonna open a can of worms because you kind of mentioned that at one point you ran for mayor, and you've been outspoken about a lot of issues in the city of Portsmouth, especially concerning downtown and the whole city. To be frank, and Colonel might like this, and Leah might want to chime in too. When it came down, as we were talking earlier about how things were going and how plans were made back in the 90s and the early 2000s and how the ball was kind of rolling, and then seemed like and don't want to blame it all on politics, but seemed like politics kind of got involved and sort of slowed down. When you had a different composition of the council, even though a plan was set in motion. And I know, sometimes different politicians will come in with different ideas of how to do things, but when you got a basic plan that you spend a lot of money for, Ray Gendrich is not cheap when he comes into town. And like they're talking about the innovative district now, they had already had a plan for connecting downtown to mid-city. All that land, all that space in there, before we were losing all the car dealerships. And it might have saved some of those car dealerships. They might have stayed if we had kept that ball rolling. How much do you think politics has been a part of the slowdown, or if it has, in your opinion? Because we've seen things happen at the level where they can make the policy and keep things going, but it gets slowed down, for some reason or another.
Well, I think the simpler answer to that is that we take our eye off the ball and we get distracted. And distractions can be, infighting within council, infighting within directors, or they do one thing and the other guy doesn't. So there's this constant tug of war, or tugging and pulling, and it doesn't help to where, I know that the life, well, I wouldn't say the life expectancy, but anyhow, the term expectancy of a city manager is anywhere between, some say 3 years to 7 years.
2 days.
And, just in the last year, we've had 3. So when you have the leadership shift change, it's not none of their faults to the fact that, we've had 3. Well, I can't say that honestly, but anyhow, what I'm saying is that when you have that many change, that means that nobody has the eye on the ball, because the ball is moving like this.
It's moving in all directions. It's all over the place.
Who can keep their eye on the ball? And so it all comes down, and as I told one of the former city managers not too long ago, I said, we've just got to change our culture. And it's not just Portsmouth, it's the whole country in a lot of cases. And I'm not trying to, I want to say that we as people of our own communities can come together and actually do great things and get back on track to where we all know that we want a place that we want to live, we want to work, we want to play, and it be infectious, and not be pushed upon or push them on, one idea or the other, but also, allow for the creativity of all people involved. It's they're everyone's stakeholders, and you can be a stakeholder paying taxes. You can be a stakeholder coming in to just work, and you don't pay taxes, but you still use the services and the facilities here. Or you can be a child or a young adult or a teenager, but everybody has something to put into their own community and do for their own community. And more importantly, not go out there banging your chest and saying, I did this, but encouraging other people to do the same thing.
Yes.
And that's how you get the infectious nature of a strong knit community, either it be in the business community or it be in the residential community, but all of it working hand in hand together. And the rising tide lifts all ships. And I can honestly say there's another term I love, is that there was a person, and I too was an Amway distributor at one point in time, so I'll say this without any problem. But there was a gentleman that was a high-ranking Amway distributor by the name of John Crow, and he said this on stage. A person that was actually an inspiration to a lot of people. Him and his wife, I believe, had a home invasion, and he ended up getting shot, but lived to tell about it. But he told this story about, he wanted to be. He didn't want to take it and show off for people to impress them. He just wanted to inspire them. And he said, he used the terminology to say, everybody wants a piece of pie. Everybody wants a piece of the pie. But he says, I think beyond that. And he says, I just want to build more bakeries and make more pies. And that's what we all need to get down to, and realize that we just need to make more pies. And that's what's going to basically say to the community that has, challenges in getting people out of despair, out of poverty, and just say we need to make more pies and share them amongst ourselves. And that brings me to food. Because here's one thing I did. I had I do a lease, a master lease on the spaces where Little Shops is located. So the one space beside that was a little place called Twisted Art. They were there for 3 years. And when they moved out back in February of last year, I told my wife, I said, we're going to open up a store. And she's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So I decided to come along, and my 15-year-old, I give her all the praise that she has the general store, the Market Street and General Store, which is basically, you know, a good throwback of what everybody thought of when they went into the old country store or the corner store. You know, we've got a 1958 Coca-Cola cooler there with glass bottle Cokes. And we've got, you know, over here, we got a player piano at the front door. Eventually I'll get that rolling. And it's just got this whole nostalgic feel. And then we're going to add a market to it where we'll be able to get bread, cheeses, and milk and eggs and meats and Watson, and just have this whole market feel in downtown. So I kind of thought, well, if I can at least tell the story in a positive way, we'll hopefully be going all right. And we're going to do a lot of online business as well through that little store.
That's good.
So that's been two of my personal projects between Pelican, or three: Pelican, the studio, Imanovation Studios, and then the Market Street and General Store. So that's my contribution to the projects that are going on down here, and still trying to keep a seat at the table and bring more people to be part of this infectious community.
Well, how soon do you see your studios opening up? What time frame do you have?
We've got a few people in here right now. So, but I'd like to say we're talking to a group out of Virginia Beach. He's from this area, and he says, man, he's toured the facility. And he says, I can have 20 or 30 people in my organization be rolling through here and doing different projects. They do film, they do concert promotion. They work with a lot of different people, and you know, this is their busy time because they're down there most likely working with a lot of the folks from Something in the Water right now. And so there is some opportunity that's going to possibly bring a lot of talent in here, but we're thinking probably around June, we should be finishing up a lot of the little cosmetic thing. I need new carpet, I need some painting and everything else here in the space. And the 2 or 3 tenants that I have up here right now, I just, you know, I've got them here, and they're contributing to the cause to keep the lights on. And but we'll be ready to really rock and roll here, literally in probably about 30 to 60 days.
Good. Excellent.
And we've had some other folks here already that have had a space here and have been participating, and they've obviously set their goals to move on to another location. So we continue to be to fill a need on an interim basis in some cases too.
Yeah,
Sounds
Tony.
good, Tony.
Yes, Tony, I got another question. And
Sure.
you know, you talked about difficulties, and did the same difficulties when the old when they had those that 30%, 32% increase in residential properties, did that same rate increases spill over to commercial property? And
Oh my gosh, if I could find what 454 Chestnut, the Pelican Snowballs place did. My assessment on that building, and it was a mistake, and they admitted to it to a certain degree. So I went and filed an appeal. But yes, we went from $39,000 to $116,000 in value just on the real estate.
Wow. You're trying to bring people into Portsmouth?
And I'm like, okay, what do we do here with the? And of course, now, mind you, there is another incentive called the tax abatement program, where you go and spend so much money to fix it up, but you don't increase the size of it. And I've locked in our tax rate based on what it was before we started the work for 10 years, and then it graduates off in 5. And any business in the city can actually qualify for that, by the way, where you can lock in that tax rate. But yes, it did happen on the commercial stuff. Some of them went to do an appeal. The first appeal deadline was March the 31st. The second one was April the 7th. I'm hoping people did get in there to at least file appeals. and the number of people that I talked to did. And some of them were accepting, 6 to 10%, but when it got over 10%, they were like, whoa, wait a minute. So, but I think that Ms. Culpepper, who is now I think she's the interim tax
Yes,
assessor.
yes.
What a nice lady. I tell you, I saw her up there just a few days ago, the end of last week. And we had seen each other for the first time in probably 4 years since she retired the first time, and 4 or 5 years. And she did make some adjustments, and naturally they made some adjustments. So I'm hoping that people will start to see that number start balancing out a little bit better than what it did come out there with the shock and awe that it had. When everybody's like, whoa, I got $500 more to pay on top of all the other increases
Yes, indeed.
in stuff, So, but yeah, I hope that answered the question that it did. It happened across the board. So, but I can honestly say though, like I said, it comes to anyone coming in and doing renovations to commercial properties and even residential properties, you can get those abatement programs set up. It's the building's got to be at least 20 years old inside of an historic district and 40 years old anywhere else in the city. And I caution anyone that ever tries to look into doing that program, especially if you're spending anywhere in upwards of maybe $10,000 to $50,000 in renovation costs. It's worth making the call. It's really triggered by the building permit. So what I tell everybody is that if you go down and buy a building permit, call up the tax assessor's office and provide them with either pictures or have them come out and reassess the property within 10 days of you buying the building permit at the time that the building looks the ugliest. It's as simple as that. If it doesn't look great and you don't clean it up before you get that building permit right away, because you want them to see it and say, okay, yes, this is definitely worth only $50,000 rather than $75,000. We'll reassess it, lock it in, but do it within 10 days of getting your building permit. And they have to document it, accept it, and it's a one-page application down there at the tax assessor's office at City Hall on the second floor.
And that's good information, Tony. And that's why we try to bring as many people up here, because it's a lot of incentives. There's a lot of things people don't know until they get involved in it. A lot of people don't know when they need a building permit, and they'll make additions on their house, and then down the road, assessor's office catches up.
Oh yeah.
Then they wonder why the assessment went up. So it's easier to do it, get them out there, like you said, when it's at its worst, but when they come out there years after you have done it, they're going to push it up to the highest. Because,
And another thing is, and this is something we learned here just recently, another project, I forgot to mention this one, is the old St. Paul's Catholic School building. Which is Portsmouth Catholic, which on the corner of Washington and High Street, or Washington and London, is now known as Cambridge Hall. And so the owner that we sold the building to back in January of 21 decided he was going to come in there and refresh all of those the renovations that happened in 2007 to save the building. And so he went in there and replaced equipment for in-kind and painted and replaced windows and got his approvals through the historic district group, and figured that was all well and good. But come to find out, because it's in a flood zone, everything needed to be included in a building permit that they could measure the value that you add to it. So when the building floods, if you put down, say for instance, you put down $4,000 worth of carpet, they verify that has been put down and $4,000 worth of carpet is on that floor. Then you painted the walls. And it's not to say that you have to go down and get a building permit for carpeting, but typically if there's other things that would trigger that building permit, such as heating and air conditioning units to be replaced or windows to be replaced, These things are not necessarily structural, but they are what should trigger a building permit. And then that flood zone part of it, you know, you're then asking for forgiveness rather than permission at that point. And we learned that, and the owner was, you know, had to do what he had to do to make it happen. But I'm happy to say though that, you know, Cambridge Hall we went and rezoned it, and we went and got a special use permit for now to be an entertainment establishment. And it is now a full-fledged event space, 6,000 square feet, two big open rooms on the second floor, two big open rooms on the first floor. Each room is themed. One is a lounge setting, one is a music hall. The upstairs is a big grand hall where it's wide open and can seat up to about 100 people. And then the other side is what we call the bridal hall. So we've got it out there to bring, you know, weddings and family reunions and receptions, and we've got an event coming up on the 22nd, which is I think Saturday the 22nd, called Cookies and Conversations, and that's actually reaching out to the alumni of Portsmouth Catholic High School. And anyone here that's listening is, you know, more than welcome to just come on in. It's an open house. It's almost like a little mini reunion, but everybody's invited. Come on down and have cookies and sit there and chat with your community. And that was a program we did, and also back in March, and this is the second installment. And so it's been a nice little project to be involved with. And like I said, Cambridge Hall it was named that because it sits in the old Cambridge Square block of Old Town. They're all named, all the squares are named in downtown. Yeah. So,
and Tony, what are they doing to advertise all of these new buildings, all these new, like that event hall I didn't know about at Cambridge? What are they doing to let the community know that these things are there for their usage?
Yes. Well, I can first of all direct everyone, especially when it comes to calendar of events. Keith Toller with the Department of Tourism, and he's part of the museums, has done a fabulous job on connecting the dots. He's almost been like the funnel of bringing everything in and then putting it all out in a unified voice, which has always been a big challenge for us, is to get everything out in one unified voice. So between the business associations, the civic leagues, even Garden Week starts next week or this weekend on the 15th. And you've got, you know, historic garden tours going on in Old Town. All this can be found at visitportsmouthva.gov or .com, I think. Yeah, visit Portsmouth VA. Oh, hold on a minute. I'll have to look it up myself just to make sure I'm giving you the right address. But he's been very, he's been very good at getting everything together in one location. So visit Ports VA is, I think, your best.
Visit Ports VA.
Best way to get in touch with them.
Visit Ports VA.
Yes. You visit Ports VA. But he's got it also, and I'm probably skipping a little bit here because I've opened up the window, but it's also labeled portsvacation.com. And again, that's where you find the calendar of events for not just Old Town, not just City Park, not just, you know, the casino or Craddock or anything like that. It's the whole city. And that's something to be proud of. Quite frankly, I think everybody should probably take and, you know, create a, you know, how we like to have contacts on our phone and share our contacts with people, that I would encourage everybody to come along and actually make up a contact that says, visit Portsmouth. Put in the phone number and a couple of different other, you know, items in there, and then the website, portsvacation.com. And share it with everybody you know, because the best advertising there is always word of mouth advertising.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes,
And that always gives us the opportunity to share.
Yeah. Hey, Tony, as we wind down, I wanted to bring up the Innovative District one more time, between Effingham and Elm Street. You know, we were in a parade. Portsmouth Coffee Talk was in a parade during one of the Norfolk coming last year. and riding down and that space in between there, some of the buildings have been, they've been in, I think one time the Mary Jane building, but I think they finally got that painted or did something, or either tore it down. I'm not sure.
They torn it down, yeah.
Okay. And that was a problem I saw for a long time. And there's still some buildings in between those areas, and I don't know how long the innovative district, I saw the council kind of having a large discussion, and they're going to revisit it because they were concerned about taking up green space in some of those areas that could be good, productive, commercial areas for us to offer, but they didn't want to get rid of the green space there. But sometimes you have to sacrifice that. But those areas in between the owners that own those buildings, I always thought it would be nice if they could, until something happens, that they could come together and sort of make that area in between there. If they got together and say, well, let's paint all the buildings this color. I mean, that's just an idea. Or let's work together at least until, we get something going there. Come together and make that, it took a long time to address that Mary Jane building. And I think that was, after many times painting it, and like you said, they're torn it down. But what do you think about that as far as that area in there? Because we don't know how long this innovative district will take off and we start seeing things, especially since the council now is revisited. I guess they'll look at it again during their retreat this weekend.
Sure.
But they had a lot of concerns. It looked like a good plan that the Planning Commission presented, what they would want to do there, but there was a lot of questions from many of the council people that necessitated a revisit of that thing. Maybe not the whole plan.
It's a working plan, and I say that with some regard to the fact that it's in motion. It's moving to create a sense of place. A lot of times people use that term, a sense of place, and how it can contribute to what's already around us. Portsmouth doesn't have much land to build from the ground up as much as we have to tear down or replace and rebuild or restore and bring it back. Because let's face it, we're just not like, we don't have cornfields anymore. Well, we do in some places, but not like, some cities or counties do. When they want to build something, they build it big, and it's master planned and all this. Well, this is what we call our master plan, and it adapts. It's a working plan. It has it's a living and breathing plan. As always, the next meeting for the Innovation District is scheduled for April the 27th at the Social Services Building, and then they have another one in May, and then they'll have another one in June. And the group that's actually working out of, I believe, Raleigh, and they have an office in Charlotte, but they're coming up and they're obviously sitting down with the stakeholders, and they're presenting ideas of what they heard at the last meeting, and then you're taking it from there. So that's where we all get back to having a seat at the table as stakeholders and building owners. And I'll be the first to admit, we have two of them down here that add to that dilapidated looking building, but it was a buy and hold, and they try to do what we could, but it was trying to get it to go with, we couldn't be the pioneer like some had because we just didn't have endless pockets. So the Pilsner's department store building is one of those, and it's just sitting there waiting for its time. And then the building right beside it, which was damaged by the other building that was sitting beside it that had to be taken down. So we're in the process of getting these things teed up and ready to go, and making them viable. And it's just a race against time to make sure we can get the right players involved with the right amount of funds that it takes to do it, and it's viable, and we can be competitive and not scare away some of the ones that really have those deep pockets to come in here and say, I want to take up a half a city block and redo it. And that's where that culture thing needs to change, where we over-regulate sometimes to the point where it actually runs people away, and they say, well, I can just do this somewhere else. It's easier.
Yes.
So I hear it all from all angles. I can honestly say that, that some of these buildings you speak of are obviously in the works. It's the Mary Jane Bakery that was actually going to be my pie factory. But I said something about doing pies. I don't know if y'all know Todd Wilson. Does anybody know the name? He grew up here in Portsmouth. He actually went to IC Norcom. He lives
Yeah,
in
Todd. Yes, he bakes in New York. Is it New York?
No, New Jersey.
New Jersey, yes. He came back for a, yes.
Yeah. He lost his baking facility up there after Sandy, the Hurricane Sandy. And I got a hold of him back when John Rowe first became mayor. And I said, Todd, do you want to open up a bakery in Portsmouth? And he says, it's not a bad idea. So we were looking hard at Mary Jane Bakery and trying to figure out how to repurpose some of those buildings for his business. And so time, of course, as I say sometimes, time kills all deals, and time just went by. But I stay in touch with Todd at least, if not twice a year, and I just talked to him just recently, and I'm trying to get him to consider providing us some of his pies for the Market Street and General Store downtown too. So we're going to bring his pies back to Portsmouth and get them in the stores down here. And so we stay in touch on a regular basis.
Well, Tony, I'm going to get in touch with you because I need to get in touch with Todd.
Okay.
I need to get a number to get in touch with him.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you there's the dark side of the moon. We don't call him between somewhere around the end of September to after Thanksgiving. And then of course he breathes about for a week and then he goes back into the
Okay, well, that's wonderful.
It's a good time to talk to him now.
I'm at the right time period when I need to reach him. Okay.
That's fine. That's perfectly fine. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's things like that. It's just the building of the synergy. It's the building of the community. It's building the people together that have the right mindset, that want to stay focused on the ball, because it's two things. Time is money. Time kills all deals. And that's the two things I have to focus on all the time. And so sometimes we get some of them stuck in the rut a little bit. And, painting buildings, we've got murals going up on buildings all over to help that, exactly what you're saying. The Support Portsmouth Public Art Group is putting up murals everywhere, all over the city, and prettying up buildings that they can. But they want to make sure that they're going on buildings that doesn't get torn down in like a year.
Right.
So,
and Tony, before we go, you have a number of new restaurants that are opening downtown.
Correct.
Can you share with us what some of those restaurants are that's opening?
Okay. Well, like I said, the brewery just announced, or just opened last week, which is more beer than anything else. And let's see, Sunshine Swenson has just kind of done a reset to the Truth Restaurant a little bit in the 300 block. I haven't confirmed and to know that that the old famous department store building, which was TCC Visual Arts Center, has gone to closing, and there were still rumors out on the street. I haven't confirmed it, but still rumors on the street that there's still going to be a restaurant in there on the first floor, and then residents up on the upper floors. I'm not too sure the group that's doing the restaurant in the old Thumpers restaurant space on the corner of King and Court Street. And I don't want to miss anyone out.
Yeah, I saw them at City Council or Planning Commission at one time. That's been some time.
Yeah, they've had a long process to get that done.
Okay.
So I don't know if anybody else, as far as restaurants, restaurants are right now to get going because it all comes down to staffing.
Yes, indeed. And staffing is hard now. It's extremely
like I said, I say this to a lot of folks. I said, the restaurant is the most desirable business to get into, but it has the highest failure rating in any of the businesses.
That's right.
So it's a tough one to work. But in the meantime, we're still plugging along, making sure what we have is also still viable and surviving and can pay its bills. And that's what's key, is to make sure they're good to go. Food trucks, another big conversation to get people engaged in having businesses. So we got a couple of food truck groups that are still working along, and I'm still hopeful at some point in time we're going to have a food truck park downtown here.
That would be great.
possibly right across the street from Pelican on Chestnut. But nothing is firmed up on that quite yet. But we're hopeful that we might be able to get a pass to make that parking lot right beside the old Pilsner's building into a food truck park.
Okay, any last comments, host?
Well, Tony, I can say thank you for the master class. This has truly been a master's class. I've learned a lot, and I appreciate that. And got a number of people who are online who also seems to appreciate what you're sharing on today. So I'm going to say thank you so very much, and I'm going to give you a call because I do need Todd Wilson's number, and they won't let me mention what I need it for, so I'll just leave that part alone. Okay.
We'll make him pay his dues.
She
his alumni dues.
She wants a sweet potato pie. I know that's exactly what it is.
Want a sweet potato pie, Todd. And plus, we're getting ready to celebrate 145 years of IC Norcom High School. So
and he is going to be here, I'm sure.
So I need to get in touch with Todd, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
But thank you once again, Tony. This has been a great session, and I've truly learned a lot. So looking forward to some great things happening in downtown Portsmouth, in as much as the farmers market has really brought life back into downtown Portsmouth. So
yes, and I can't say enough for James
and Kathleen. They've done a masterful job.
Kathleen have done a wonderful job, and I think they've hats off to them for coordinating and everything they've done to that, because it's just a great opportunity for anyone, again, to step into the world of their own business. And then on top of that, just add to the whole flavor of what downtown is all about.
And we can't forget about what Terry Danahue did. And she was there.
For yes.
She was the architect of it. So
that's right. You got to give her credit. Got to give her credit. That's for sure.
Terry did a lot, and I know she worked it every weekend, and so giving her hats off to her as well. So,
yes.
But I love sharing this stuff. I can't tell you how much I love.
I can tell. We felt the energy.
Yeah.
So I continue to do everything I do like this, and just make this community so much stronger and reach its fullest potential with everyone that's involved. This is what I like to call my hometown, and I like to give everybody the opportunity to be part of it, and everything I do, and lift everyone up. Like I said, rising tide lifts all ships.
Lifts all ships. Colonel?
Yeah, Tony, I'd like to thank you also. And I also learned a whole lot. And what I put in my what I call my basket of knowledge. I had one, and when you come back next time, I want you to address what's the property out where Bonneville Apartments used to be, all that vacant land. What are we going to do with that? Because we centered down of what we're doing downtown, but in the outskirts, a few miles away in Bonneville. I always wondered, what's planned for that. But thanks.
Thank you.
And Tony, we go way back. We sat on many committees together, Citizens Committee. And I like when we're standing up, you're one of those guys I can look eye to eye.
Yes, sir.
So over 6 footers, so we don't have to look down and look up. We can just look straight in each other's eyes. And I appreciate that. And go ahead.
That's fine for me, because hey, the PIT's in this weekend, so I feel right at home now with all.
All those guys. I saw some of them downtown today. But, and I appreciate you, and I hope all this good news. The updates you give us and the things that Portsmouth, that they are spreading that news outside of Hampton Roads.
We have to.
Just like you mentioned, the what's the guy Woods, the guy
Todd Wilson. Todd Wilson.
We have a lot of people that are from here that live other places that in their retirement, or they're thinking about coming back and opening a business. And if they don't know what we have to offer or what we are planning to do, we might miss out on some people coming. We can't depend on everybody right in Portsmouth to bring us up to where we want to be. We're going to have to get that message outside of Portsmouth and outside of Hampton Roads.
You're absolutely right.
And then when they come in, we have to, like you said, we have to treat them right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly.
Yep. Well, there is something to say we've got a wonderful amount of talent that are coming from our schools and universities in this region. And it's a challenge that the entire region has to fess up and say we need to do a better job of retaining our talent.
Exactly.
Right.
And they're leaving here in droves, getting their degrees and leaving us. And we can turn this around to where, you know, we can bring in this new business that it's going to keep the, you know, the technology jobs. And I'm a big film industry proponent. I just think that's one of the easiest low hanging fruit opportunities is to have film. And because Regent and ODU and NSU, Hampton, they all have some component in the film business and film industry that gives us some wonderful talent, but then unfortunately they leave because there's no work for them.
Right. Right.
And so I'm again, that's the part of the reason why I'm doing this tech hub here, is that we want to keep working in this market and in their hometown, and we will get it. We will get it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, again, Tony, we appreciate you, and we'll have you back. You know, and thanks.
Thank you.
You know, you on the list, but thanks for giving me a call and say, well, I got something to talk about. So,
Yeah.
you know, anytime you do, let us know, and if we have a time, we'll fit you in. You know, it's always good. All right, Portsmouth Coffee Talk is here for our voice,
our community,
and our future.
And we salute you, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
For a job well done.
Much.
Thank you so very much.
You.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for watching on Facebook. We appreciate you. And we're going to upload this to Facebook page. And before we go, Leah, you know, Saturday, if the weather holds out, that Day of Peace that's going to be out in Cavalier Manor.
Day of Peace in Cavalier Manor.
And, you know, look, we had the Carlton open on earlier last week. And it's going to be a great thing, a family affair, ending up a camp he had all week this week during spring break for our youth. And Saturday, they're just going to have a big blowout for family, adults, and everybody. So come out there if the weather holds up. If it doesn't rain, it's probably not going to rain all day.
But Tony has promised us good weather for Saturday.
Yes, and
I think they've shifted the the clouds away. So
yes,
Mayor Holly said that there was a fire hydrant that you could pick up, open it up, and turn the switch, and turns the clouds away.
Okay, well, we're gonna do that then. Okay.
He didn't tell too many people, but I know where that one is.
Yeah, well, hopefully that'll happen, because it's going to be a great day, and it's all about our youth. So, and you said the alumni be out there, and a lot of other groups. City is a part of it. So come on out. Saturday is from 10 to 5, I believe.
10 to 5.
In the Cavalier Manor recreation area. They're going to take that whole area. All right. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you, and have a good evening. We'll see you next Monday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.